In the far reaches of the galaxy, the great interstellar empires had grown complacent. For centuries, the Zorn Empire, a brutal and technologically advanced race, had dominated space. The Warian Federation, known for its incredible psychic abilities, and the enigmatic Entha, a race of ancient, seemingly immortal beings, held sway over vast regions of space. Each civilization had long viewed humanity as an insignificant blip, primitive and incapable of challenging their dominance. But humanity was not content with their position. A new force was rising among them, and they were determined to carve out their place in the stars. It all began with the discovery of the Phoenix Protocol, an ancient set of blueprints buried deep within a ruined alien station on the fringe of known space. The protocol, however, was no ordinary find. It contained advanced knowledge that transcended the capabilities of even the oldest galactic empires. It was a weapon, an idea, a way of thinking that would change the course of galactic history. The Phoenix Protocol was humanity's salvation. It introduced a combination of nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, and quantum manipulation that, when fused together, could achieve unimaginable feats. Whoever mastered the protocol would possess the key to both war and peace, both creation and destruction. It promised unlimited power, and soon, the most powerful factions in the galaxy were scrambling to lay claim to it. However, humanity did not seek the protocol for mere power. They sought it for survival, and to prove their worth among the stars. After centuries of being pushed to the margins, the species was hungry for recognition and revenge. With the Zorn, Warian, and Entha empires standing over them like towering giants, humanity had little choice but to push back or risk extinction. The first breakthrough came when Dr. Ilara Voss, a brilliant but rebellious scientist, unlocked the first phase of the Phoenix Protocol on the planet Epsilon 8. The initial discovery was subtle, a self-repairing fleet of ships, a hybrid between organic life and machine intelligence, capable of evading even the most advanced tracking systems. Ilara's team had only scratched the surface, but it was enough to set the galaxy ablaze. The sudden rise of this new technology was seen as a direct threat to the established order. Each empire scrambled to understand its origins and determine how to combat it. The Zorn Empire, known for their brutal, empire-building tactics, immediately declared war on humanity. They sent their fleets, vast and ferocious, to wipe out human colonies. However, they underestimated humanity's adaptability. The first clash was a slaughter for the Zorn. Their heavy warships were simply outmaneuvered and outclassed by human-made vessels that could heal and repair themselves mid-battle. The Zorn were forced to retreat, humiliated and puzzled by the unexpected turn of events. Meanwhile, the Warian Federation took a more insidious approach. Using their psychic abilities, they infiltrated human minds, attempting to sabotage the research and turn humanity's newfound weapon against itself. However, the Warians soon discovered that humans possessed something they had not counted on, an immune resistance to psychic influence. The Warians' attempts to bend human will were met with failure, and their agents were hunted down and eliminated by a growing network of human operatives, working from the shadows. It became clear that humanity's resilience extended far beyond their physical limitations. The Entha, too, watched closely, but they were not quick to act. The ancient race of Entha had been around for millennia, their ways enigmatic and their motivations often inscrutable. They were curious, but they also recognized the potential threat humanity posed. The Entha had seen civilizations rise and fall, but never one so determined, so relentless, and so capable of adapting so rapidly. Their decision was simple: they would wait. For now, humanity's growing power was not a direct threat, but that might change if they gained too much momentum. As the tensions rose, a small group of human military leaders, scientists, and political figures came together to form an alliance known as the Vanguard. Their goal was clear: to protect humanity from the looming threats and to push forward with the implementation of the Phoenix Protocol. The Vanguard knew that they could not fight the galaxy's greatest empires directly, at least not yet. Instead, they would use the protocol to create a new path, one that would allow humanity to rise above the chaos of war and establish themselves as the dominant power. But even as the Vanguard pushed forward, they knew the true battle was just beginning. The protocol was more than just a weapon, it was a blueprint for a new civilization. And if humanity was to succeed, they would need to master it before their enemies did. But time was not on their side. The Zorn were reassembling their forces, the Warians were regrouping with dark intentions, and the Entha, though silent, were watching from the shadows. Victory, however, was not something that came easily. But for humanity, it would not come without a fight. The Vanguard's newfound power had caused ripples across the galaxy, and now the flames of war were spreading rapidly. Humanity's early successes against the Zorn Empire had been nothing short of miraculous. The self-repairing fleet, based on the Phoenix Protocol, had turned the tide of several space battles, forcing the Zorn to rethink their strategies. Their pride wounded, they were now gathering their forces for a more calculated, retaliatory strike. But the Vanguard knew that defeating the Zorn on the battlefield was only part of the equation. To truly establish humanity as a galactic power, they needed to secure alliances with other races. The Warian Federation and the Entha remained formidable threats, and there was little time to waste. Diplomatic efforts were underway, with emissaries being dispatched to various factions. Yet, most of the galaxy viewed humanity with suspicion, especially given their sudden rise to power and their unpredictable nature. While diplomats worked tirelessly behind the scenes, the real battles were taking place in the outer systems, far from the seat of galactic politics. The Zorn had reassembled their fleet, and this time, they were more cautious. They had learned from their earlier mistakes. They no longer underestimated humanity's ingenuity. They were adapting, shifting their strategies, and they had brought reinforcements, some of their most advanced warships, designed specifically to counter the Phoenix Protocol's unique self-repairing capabilities. The first major confrontation occurred at the edge of the Valtor Nebula, a remote and inhospitable region of space. The Zorn launched a surprise attack on a human supply convoy, carrying vital resources to the Vanguard's research outposts. The human fleet, though smaller, was prepared. Their ships, while still in the early stages of full integration with the Phoenix Protocol, had been upgraded significantly. The human ships were agile, swarming around the Zorn's massive warships, utilizing every inch of their advanced technology to their advantage. The battle was intense, with flashes of energy lighting up the dark void of space. The Zorn's warships fired heavy plasma cannons, and their torpedoes tore through the cold silence, seeking out human targets. But the Vanguard's ships, despite their smaller size, moved with uncanny precision. They could evade and reconfigure mid-flight, with nanite-based technology that allowed them to regenerate damaged components, sometimes even within seconds. The Zorn had no answer for this. At the heart of the battle, Captain Maya Alvarado commanded the Courageous, a newly retrofitted human flagship. Her face was hard, her eyes sharp, as she gave orders to her crew with deadly calm. She had been at the helm of several successful skirmishes, but this was different. She could feel the weight of the entire conflict on her shoulders. If they failed here, the Zorn would be emboldened. It was more than just a battle, it was a message. "Prepare the graviton pulse," she ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos of the bridge. "We need to break their formation." The Courageous was equipped with a unique weapon, a modification of the Phoenix Protocol, a graviton pulse capable of destabilizing enemy shields and creating localized gravitational distortions. As the pulse fired, a shockwave of energy rippled through the battlefield. The Zorn ships, vulnerable to the pulse, faltered. The Courageous moved in, cutting through the weakened fleet like a knife through butter. But just as victory seemed imminent, a new threat emerged. A massive Zorn dreadnought, the Apex Dominator, emerged from the dark depths of the nebula. Its hull was reinforced with an experimental shield generator that was impervious to the graviton pulse. It had been hiding, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The battle shifted in an instant. The Apex Dominator unleashed a devastating barrage of firepower, and for the first time in the engagement, humanity's fleet was forced to retreat. Captain Alvarado's voice crackled over the comms, "Pull back. We need reinforcements now." The human fleet withdrew, taking heavy casualties, but they had managed to cripple the Zorn's primary force. It was a tactical retreat, a chance to regroup and prepare for the next stage of the war. As they jumped into hyperspace, the shattered remnants of the Zorn fleet were left behind, nursing their wounds. Humanity had struck a blow, but the Zorn were far from defeated. They would return, stronger and more determined. Back at the Vanguard's command base, the mood was grim. The battle had been a victory, but it was a costly one. Thousands of lives had been lost, and the full extent of the Zorn's retaliatory forces had yet to be felt. The Phoenix Protocol had given humanity a fighting chance, but the road to victory would not be easy. Every victory would come at a price, and the enemies of humanity were learning quickly. As the war continued to unfold, humanity would have to face a growing threat not only from the Zorn but from all corners of the galaxy. The stakes were higher than ever. The question was no longer if humanity could survive the conflict, but if they could emerge from the ashes stronger than before, ready to claim their place as the dominant force across the cosmos. The fires of war had been lit, and there would be no turning back. The war between humanity and the Zorn Empire raged across the galaxy, but it wasn't only the Zorn that were watching. Far beyond the reach of human and Zorn space, the enigmatic Entha watched from their hidden sanctuaries. The ancient race had never been quick to engage in galactic affairs, preferring instead to observe and manipulate events from the shadows. They had been content to allow the Zorn, Warriors, and others to hold dominion, knowing full well that the balance of power was always in flux. But humanity's unexpected rise had not gone unnoticed. In the depths of the Entha homeworld, a quiet but powerful council of the ancient beings convened in a darkened chamber. The air was thick with the hum of psychic energy as their collective minds reached out across the stars. They had seen what humanity had done, the victories they had snatched from the jaws of defeat, and the sudden technological leap that had propelled them forward. They understood the Phoenix Protocol's potential and the promise it held. And yet, they hesitated. "I have been watching them," whispered Jerian, an ancient Entha elder, her voice a mere thought reverberating through the council chamber. "Humanity is more than just a threat. They are an anomaly. They evolve too quickly, adapt too rapidly. They must be contained," responded Kal, another elder, his presence far colder than Jerian's. "The balance of power has already shifted. If they are allowed to grow unchecked, they will surpass even us. Their relentless pursuit of glory is dangerous." "But they are not like us," countered Keel, an even older member of the council. His voice was slow, deliberate. "Their nature is different. We have seen this before. They remind me of the Warriors at their inception, hungry for power, yes, but also for something greater. Something that might make them unpredictable." Jerian's mind was deep in thought. Her long, alien features rippled with concentration. "I believe the answer lies not in their destruction, but in their guidance. The protocol they wield could be the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of the universe, one that we have long sought. Perhaps, if they are properly guided, they can help us achieve something beyond our current limitations." The council fell into silence, as the enormity of her words hung in the air. Could humanity be the catalyst for something far greater than even the Entha could imagine? In the human war efforts, while the Zorn Empire continued its retaliatory strikes, humanity was not without its own internal struggles. The Vanguard, now a powerful force, had suffered heavy losses in the past few battles. Some leaders within the alliance began questioning the wisdom of using the Phoenix Protocol as their primary tool in the war. The protocol had given them victory in skirmishes and battles, but the Zorn's adaptations were growing more sophisticated. The risks of relying too heavily on this one weapon were becoming more apparent with each passing day. Captain Maya Alvarado, still reeling from the last battle against the Zorn's apex dominator, was sitting in the quiet solitude of her command ship, the Courageous. The hum of the ship's engines was a constant reminder of the battles ahead. As she studied the schematics of the protocol on her terminal, a sharp knock on her door broke her concentration. "Enter," she called, her voice tinged with weariness. The door slid open, and in walked Commander Tobias Hayes, her closest advisor and confidant. His face was grim, his expression set in a hard line. He stepped forward, handing her a data pad. "Captain, we've received word from the diplomatic envoy, he began. The Warrior Federation is moving toward a neutral stance. They've called for peace talks. Maya raised an eyebrow. Peace talks? After all this time? After they've been sending their psychic agents to sabotage us? Hayes nodded. It seems they're reconsidering their approach. They're worried about the Zorn's military strength and the rise of our new technology. They may want to broker an alliance. Maya leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. The idea of an alliance with the Warriors, their former enemies, seemed almost absurd. But there was logic in it. With the Zorn Empire focusing its efforts on humanity, the Warriors might see an advantage in forming a partnership rather than continuing the conflict. Is it a trap? She asked bluntly. It's hard to say. But we can't afford to ignore it. If we push them too hard, they might tip the balance in favor of the Zorn, Hayes replied. Perhaps the best move is to at least engage them. We need allies, Captain. Maya stared out the viewport, watching the distant stars twinkle. The weight of leadership was starting to feel unbearable. Each decision felt like a delicate balance, and one wrong move could send everything spiraling into chaos. They needed allies, but how could she trust the Warriors, knowing how easily they had turned on humanity in the past? Before she could respond, the ship's communications system flared to life. A transmission was coming through, one marked with the emblem of the Entha. Maya stiffened. Captain Alvarado, the voice of an ancient Entha echoed through the comms. It was slow, deliberate, each word hanging in the air with a weight of its own. We are watching your progress, human. The Phoenix Protocol holds much promise. But it also harbors great danger. We propose a conversation. Meet us at the Zadar threshold, beyond Zorn-controlled space. If you seek true victory, you must listen. Do not come unprepared. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Maya staring at the dark screen. The Entha had finally made their move. It was clear, humanity was caught in the middle of a much larger game than they had ever anticipated. And whether they emerged victorious or destroyed would depend not only on their own choices, but on the hidden hands that guided the fates of the galaxy's most powerful races. The message from the Entha had left a lingering unease among the Vanguard leadership. Captain Maya Alvarado sat in a dimly lit war room aboard the Courageous, surrounded by her most trusted officers. The implications of the transmission were not lost on her. The Entha were not known for their direct interventions, and their cryptic message could mean either a unique opportunity or an unprecedented threat. No matter which way the scales tipped, one thing was certain: humanity was no longer just fighting for survival against the Zorn. The Entha, with their deep, mysterious knowledge of the cosmos, had now entered the fray. We don't know if they'll be allies, or if this is some sort of trap, Captain Alvarado said, her voice calm but her words heavy. But we have no choice. If we turn them away, the Zorn might see it as a sign of weakness. And the Warriors, they might be emboldened. Commander Tobias Hayes nodded thoughtfully, his brows furrowed as he studied the coordinates of the Zadar threshold. The Zadar threshold is at the edge of the Warrior and Zorn territories. If we go there, we're stepping into the heart of hostile space. Our ships are not yet ready for an engagement on both fronts. Maya glanced at the tactical display on the wall, where the blinking red markers indicated Zorn-controlled regions, and the blue clusters denoted Warrior space. Both were vast, and both were unforgiving. Then we prepare. We'll bring everything we have. If the Entha want us to meet them, we'll meet them with strength. I will not let humanity become a pawn in someone else's game. Despite her resolve, a quiet sense of doubt lingered in the back of her mind. The Entha were powerful, ancient, and unfathomably wise. But their motives were as difficult to discern as their true intentions. The last thing humanity needed was to be manipulated by a race whose indifference to galactic struggles could make them just as dangerous as the Zorn. But Maya was no stranger to tough decisions. In the end, the only way forward was through boldness. She turned to her officers. Prepare the fleet. We leave for the Zadar threshold at once. We'll take every precaution, but we can't afford to show weakness. As the preparations began, word spread across human colonies and the military network. News of the Nth's mysterious message sent a ripple of uncertainty throughout humanity's ranks. Some saw it as an opportunity, an offer of knowledge, perhaps a way to unlock further advancements from the Phoenix Protocol. Others feared the worst, that the Ntha were testing humanity, waiting for them to show their true hand before making their move. Either way, the Vanguard had no choice but to play the game. Meanwhile, far from the human fleet, the Zorn Empire had not forgotten their humiliating defeat at the Valtor Nebula. Their pride had been deeply wounded, and they were now recalibrating their strategies for a renewed offensive. The Apex Dominator, their flagship, had been in drydock for repairs, but their retaliation was already in motion. A new fleet, larger and more coordinated than the previous one, was assembling under the leadership of General Rethar, a seasoned Zorn commander known for his cold, calculating nature. General Rethar had spent weeks analyzing the human fleet's tactics, their use of the Phoenix Protocol, and the self-repairing ships that had turned the tide of several battles. He knew that the key to defeating humanity lay not in brute force, but in understanding the very technology that had made them so formidable. The Protocol had been the turning point, and Rethar believed that if he could acquire it, humanity would fall. Rethar's plan was simple: intercept the human fleet before it could reach the Zadar threshold. He knew that the Ntha were unpredictable, but they had never openly sided with a single race. The Zorn Empire's strategy was to eliminate humanity as a threat before the Ntha had a chance to intervene. If the Ntha wanted to play their game, the Zorn would make sure they were no longer around to do so. Back in human space, the fleet had begun its journey toward the Zadar threshold. Maya stood at the command center of the Courageous, watching as the stars streaked by in hyperspace. The distance felt like an eternity, yet time seemed to accelerate with every passing second. The Ntha had given no further information, no guarantees. Only the cryptic message. Humanity had no idea what awaited them at the threshold of Zorn and Warian territory. The silence was broken when the ship's communications officer spoke, his voice urgent. "Captain, we've just received a transmission from the Warian Federation. They're requesting an immediate meeting. They say it's urgent." Maya hesitated, her fingers hovering over the console. The Warians had already shown their interest in peace talks, but their true motives had remained unclear. Could they be trying to broker a deal while humanity was focused on the Ntha? Or was this another trick to turn the tides in favor of the Zorn? The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. "Patch it through," she said, her voice firm but cautious. The screen flickered, and an image of a Warian diplomat appeared. He was tall and slender, with piercing eyes that glowed with the familiar psychic energy of his race. "Captain Alvarado," he began, his voice smooth and measured. "We must speak. The Zorn have mobilized in your direction. They plan to intercept you before you can reach the Zadar threshold. You must turn back now, or you risk your fleet being destroyed." Maya's heart sank. The Warians, now offering help, had their own agenda. She had known this was coming. No power in the galaxy acted out of pure altruism. The Warians had seen an opportunity to weaken both humanity and the Zorn in one fell swoop. The stakes had just gotten higher. Humanity was now surrounded by threats on all sides. "No," Maya responded coldly, her resolve hardening. "We will not turn back. We have come too far. But we will make this a stand. Tell your masters that humanity does not fear the Zorn, nor the Warians. We will not be intimidated." The Warian diplomat's expression darkened. "So be it, Captain. But know this, there are greater forces at play. The Zorn are not your only enemy. Choose your path carefully." The transmission cut off, and Maya turned to her officers, her voice unwavering. "Prepare for battle. We move forward, no matter what. The Zorn may try to stop us, the Warians may scheme, but humanity will not be swayed. Our future is ahead, not behind." As the Courageous and its fleet surged toward the Zadar threshold, the gathering storm was upon them. On all sides, enemies lurked in the shadows, but in the heart of that storm, humanity would either be crushed or rise above it all. And they would do it on their own terms. The Zadar threshold loomed on the edge of known space, a vast expanse of dark, treacherous void that separated the warring factions of the galaxy. The human fleet, under the command of Captain Maya Alvarado, approached cautiously, knowing the risks were beyond calculation. The Warriors had warned them, but their warnings felt more like threats than genuine concern. The Zorn, already moving in from the other side, were a far more immediate danger. Humanity stood on the precipice, surrounded by enemies, but with no choice but to move forward. The courageous led the fleet at the front, a symbol of humanity's resilience. Maya stood at the helm, eyes fixed on the unfolding star map. Her fingers ran across the smooth surface of the console, calculating the best course. Every decision weighed heavily on her shoulders. The Entha were close, somewhere in the shadows of the Zadar threshold, and she could only hope they had not been playing their own game with humanity's fate. "Captain," came the voice of Commander Tobias Hayes, breaking her concentration. "We've detected multiple Zorn warships on our trajectory. They're moving in fast." Maya's mind raced. The Zorn were trying to cut them off, just as the Warriors had predicted. But Maya had no intention of letting them succeed. "Prepare the fleet for combat," she ordered firmly. "Initiate evasive maneuvers and maintain communication silence until we reach the threshold. We don't want to give them any advantage." As the human fleet moved further into Zorn space, the stars seemed to dim in the distance, swallowed by the shadow of the great nebula ahead. The Zadar threshold was more than just a physical location, it was a place of legend, whispered about by many, yet few had ever ventured this far into its depths and survived. It was said to be a cosmic crossroad, where the very fabric of reality bent, and strange energies swirled in the dark corners of space. If humanity could reach the Entha and secure their guidance, it would be the greatest victory yet. But as the fleet neared the nebula's outer edge, a sudden tremor rattled the courageous. Alarms blared, and the ship's hull groaned under the pressure of unseen forces. Maya's eyes widened in alarm. "What just happened?" "We're in the nebula's gravity well," answered her chief engineer. "It's destabilizing our engines. We're losing power to our main drive." Maya's mind raced. The gravitic anomalies of the Zadar threshold had been reported, but she hadn't anticipated such an immediate effect on their systems. The Zorn were now closing in, and the fleet was vulnerable. "Engage auxiliary power," Maya barked. "We have no time to lose." But as the courageous began to struggle under the forces of the nebula, the Zorn fleet emerged from the shadows, their warships like predatory beasts, sharp angles and looming dark shapes cutting through the fabric of space. The Apex Dominator, the flagship of the Zorn Empire, led the charge, its massive cannons primed for battle. "We are not going to make it to the threshold unless we fight our way through," said Hayes, his voice tight with urgency. "We can't outrun them. We have no choice but to hold them off." Maya knew this would be a battle for survival. The human fleet was strong, but it was still outnumbered. The Zorn had the firepower, the sheer size of their ships, and the deadly tactics of a seasoned military force. But humanity had something the Zorn could never account for: ingenuity and relentless determination. "Captain," said the communications officer, "we're getting an encrypted message. It's from the Entha." Maya's pulse quickened. "Patch it through." The face that appeared on the screen was not humanoid, it was a shifting, flowing entity, its form barely comprehensible to human perception. The Entha were not bound by physicality in the way other races were. Their minds extended beyond the limits of their bodies, and their voices, though soft, felt as though they were reverberating directly within Maya's mind. "We have seen your progress, human," the voice spoke, its tones both chilling and oddly comforting. "You are on the brink of great change. But to survive what is to come, you must accept that this war will not be won by conventional means." "What do you mean?" Maya demanded, feeling the weight of the moment bearing down on her. The Zorn were already upon them, and every second of delay brought her closer to the precipice. "Humanity is unlike any race we have encountered," the Entha responded. you are driven by something more primal, more volatile than any of us. But it is this very quality that will allow you to break through the barriers that bind the galaxy. The Zorn see you as their equal, but they do not understand the fire that burns within you. Maya clenched her fists, trying to ignore the chaos of the battle outside. Tell me what we need to do. We can't hold out much longer. The Nth's response was enigmatic, even in its clarity. There is a place within the Zadar threshold, an anchor. The heart of this cosmic crossroads. If you reach it, the path will be laid bare. But beware, the Zorn will not let you pass without consequence. Before Maya could respond, the transmission ended abruptly, leaving her with more questions than answers. The Zorn were already charging, and the time for speculation was over. The Courageous shuddered again as the Zorn's weapon struck, and the fleet sprang into action. Captain Alvarado could feel the weight of the coming battle pressing down on her. Every decision from here on out would either lead to humanity's victory or their annihilation. Engage evasive maneuvers, she commanded, her voice sharp and authoritative. Activate the Phoenix Protocol's defensive capabilities. We fight, or we die trying. Humanity has never known surrender. As the human fleet engaged the Zorn forces in a violent clash of firepower and will, Maya's thoughts turned to the Ntha. They had shown their hand, but what did they truly want from humanity? Were they offering guidance, or were they simply trying to manipulate the inevitable conflict for their own purposes? As the battle raged, Maya knew one thing for certain: the Zadar threshold would be the crucible that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. If they could survive the storm ahead, they would prove to the galaxy that humanity was not just a fledgling power, they were a force to be reckoned with, relentless in their pursuit of glory. The battle erupted with the force of a dying star. The human fleet and the Zorn warships clashed in a storm of energy fire, missile salvos, and the crackling arcs of ship-to-ship combat. The void burned with the fury of two civilizations locked in a struggle for survival. At the heart of it all, the Courageous led the charge, weaving through the chaotic battlefield, its advanced self-repairing armor shrugging off glancing blows even as its cannons tore through enemy formations. But despite humanity's relentless resistance, the sheer number of Zorn warships threatened to overwhelm them. Each destroyed Zorn vessel was quickly replaced by another, and even the Phoenix Protocol's regenerative technology couldn't compensate for the sheer scale of the onslaught. Maya Alvarado clenched her fists as her bridge crew struggled to keep the Courageous intact. Status report, she barked over the chaos. Commander Tobias Hayes wiped blood from a gash on his forehead. We've lost 3 destroyers, 2 more are crippled, and the Zorn are reinforcing their rear flank. We're boxed in, Captain. Maya's mind raced. The Courageous was tough, but it wouldn't last forever against this storm. And the Nth's cryptic message still lingered in her mind. Asterisk the heart of the crossroads. The anchor, asterisk. She turned to her navigator. Plot a course deeper into the threshold. Hayes snapped his head toward her. Captain, that's suicide. The gravitic anomalies are already tearing our engines apart. The Ntha pointed us there for a reason, Maya countered. If there's even a chance it holds the key to victory, we have to take it. Otherwise, we're just fighting to die in open space. A tense moment passed before Hayes gave a sharp nod. Understood. All ships, follow our lead, Maya commanded. Break through their line and push toward the heart of the threshold. If we're going to survive this war, we need to take this chance. The human fleet surged forward, pushing deeper into the swirling chaos of the Zadar threshold. The Zorn, confused by the suicidal maneuver, hesitated for a fraction of a second, just long enough for the humans to break through. The Courageous plunged into the cosmic storm, its hull shuddering under the pressure. A strange, unnatural energy filled the void, distorting sensors and bending light itself. The deeper they went, the more the laws of physics seemed to fray at the edges. Then, something impossible happened. The space ahead of them ripped open. A titanic structure, hidden within the depths of the threshold, emerged from the swirling energies. It was ancient, far older than even the Ntha. A ring-like construct, miles in diameter, slowly rotated in the void, its surface adorned with shifting symbols that pulsed with unknown power. The anchor, Maya whispered, realization dawning on her. The Entha had led them here for a reason. But the Zorn were relentless. They had regrouped and, now sensing their prey cornered, came roaring into the threshold. The Apex Dominator led the charge, its weapons primed to obliterate the humans before they could unlock whatever secrets the anchor held. The fleet's comms crackled. General Rethar's voice, cold and triumphant, echoed through the bridge. "This ends here, humans. You have fought well, but your defiance ends today." Maya narrowed her eyes. "Like hell it does." Then, for the second time, the impossible happened. The anchor activated. The entire structure lit up, ancient energies pulsing outward in cascading waves of pure, unfathomable power. The space around them rippled, and for a moment, reality itself seemed to fracture. And in that moment, humanity changed forever. The galaxy held its breath. As the anchor erupted in blinding waves of cosmic energy, the fabric of spacetime twisted in unnatural ways. The stars seemed to bend, flickering like candles in a storm as the space around the Zadar threshold began to warp and stretch. Time itself felt warped, slowing and speeding in chaotic bursts, as if reality were holding its breath before the impending cataclysm. Captain Maya Alvarado watched in awe and terror as the enormous ring structure in front of her pulsed with light and power. The Zorn fleet hesitated, momentarily disoriented by the violent fluctuations in space. For a brief, fleeting second, Maya thought that humanity had discovered a new force that could turn the tide of the war in an instant, an unimaginable power from beyond the reaches of known space. But just as quickly, she realized that this could be humanity's end if the Zorn decided to strike. "We have to act now, Captain," shouted Commander Hayes, his voice urgent. The human fleet, still struggling to navigate the unpredictable anomalies of the threshold, had to move fast. They could not afford to wait for the Zorn to recover from their disorientation. The Courageous and its remaining forces began to power up their weapons and shields, preparing for the next phase of battle. However, the Apex Dominator and its fleet were not so easily deterred. Their ships, battle-hardened and merciless, regrouped quickly. The Zorn ships locked onto the Courageous and its fleet, charging forward with a renewed fury, weapons blazing. It was clear that General Rethar, commander of the Zorn, had no intention of letting the humans gain any advantage. The battle that followed was unlike any before it. The Zorn were relentless, firing in rapid succession, while humanity's fleet responded with its own barrage, striking back with the full force of the Phoenix Protocol's weaponry. Yet despite the firepower, it was the strange, unpredictable energies of the Zadar threshold that truly defined the conflict now. Ships were pulled off course by invisible forces, their systems fluctuating wildly as the threshold's gravitational anomalies continued to tear at reality. Maya felt the ship shudder beneath her feet as a Zorn plasma strike hit the Courageous. "Shields down to 40%, the engineering officer called out. "We need to stabilize our position or we'll be torn apart." The ship groaned under the pressure, but Maya remained resolute. "Push forward, all units. We don't back down now." As the battle raged, a sudden voice, a familiar, ethereal presence, filled Maya's mind, reverberating like a whisper in the back of her thoughts. It was the Entha. "You must understand, human," the voice intoned, calm yet filled with ancient authority. "The path you tread is one of great consequence. The anchor is not a weapon, it is a choice. It has the power to reshape the very course of the cosmos, but it requires balance. Should you or the Zorn claim it, the consequences will be irreversible. The galaxy will bend to your will, but at what cost?" Maya's heart raced as she considered the weight of their words. She could feel the pulsing energy of the anchor, the overwhelming temptation to harness it. It promised the ultimate victory, the power to finally defeat the Zorn and secure humanity's place in the galaxy, but at what cost? The Entha's warning echoed in her mind, "The galaxy will bend to your will." Would that make humanity the architects of their own downfall? "Captain," shouted Hayes, his voice breaking through her thoughts. We've lost contact with several ships in the rear. Zorn forces have breached our flank. We can't hold them much longer. Maya snapped her focus back to the situation at hand. The anchor was still pulsing, and the energy was growing stronger with every passing moment. The Zorn fleet was now closing in from all sides. Humanity's victory was within reach, but the decision was not hers to make alone. She turned to her bridge crew, each of them battle-worn and determined. "We can't afford to hesitate," Maya said, her voice carrying a newfound certainty. "We've fought too long, too hard, to let this slip away. We'll seize the anchor, but we'll do it our way." With a deep breath, she made the call. "Divert all power to the engines. We push for the heart of the anchor. Prepare for everything." The Courageous surged forward, its remaining fleet following in close formation. With the power of the Phoenix Protocol coursing through the fleet's systems, they broke through the Zorn blockade, dodging fire and cutting a path toward the anchor's center. And as they approached the structure's core, the unthinkable happened. The anchor's energy resonated in perfect harmony with humanity's resolve. The deep, cosmic energies wrapped around the fleet like a protective shield, bending reality and altering the battlefield. The Zorn warships, caught in the shockwave of the anchor's pulse, faltered. Their ships began to warp and tear apart as the gravitational forces intensified, pulling them into a cataclysmic spiral. General Rethar's flagship, the Apex Dominator, struggled against the pull of the anchor's energies, its systems failing as the Zorn tried to adapt to the unpredictable chaos. The Nth's voice returned, speaking not just to Maya but to the entire fleet. "You have chosen the path of ascension, humanity. But remember, this is a crossroads. Your will, your fire, will shape the future. You have the power to forge a new age or destroy the old one. Choose wisely." And then, with one final pulse of energy, the battle was over. The Zorn fleet was obliterated, their ships scattered into cosmic dust, and the anchor's power receded into a calm, strange quiet. The Courageous and the surviving human ships hovered at the threshold of a new reality, their hulls battered but their spirits unbroken. Maya Alvarado stood on the bridge, looking out into the void. The galaxy was forever changed, but humanity had earned its place. They had been tested in the fires of war, in the crucible of the cosmos, and they had emerged victorious. The Zadar threshold had not only been a battleground, it had been their proving ground. And now, as they looked toward the future, they knew that humanity's relentless pursuit of glory had only just begun.